What the heck is up, guys? It's Jacob here, and today I'm talking about the Dell PowerEdge drac cards. I don't know if it's just in the PowerEdge servers. As far as I know, it's in the PowerEdge servers, and it might be in their other servers, but I know it's in the PowerEdge series servers. So this goes way back to their older series. I don't even know what generation, but it goes way back. If you have even as old as like a PowerEdge 1650 or something like that, it supports the drac card. So what the hell is a drac card? For those of you guys who don't know. Drac stands for Dell Remote Access Controller. Now, what is this? Okay, so it's just like it sounds. It's a remote access controller or card, whatever you want the C to stand for. Dell Remote Access Card. And what it does is basically allows you to get into the server and do certain functions on it. It can be very, very high level functions such as restarting, powering up and on the server, turning it off, or even screwing with stuff inside the BIOS, major functions of the server remotely through a web browser. And what's very cool about it is it's doesn't have to be done with the server on. So for instance, I can go in there and modify stuff on the server, or turn the server, I can even turn the server on or reboot it or whatever through the drac card. And it also doesn't rely on the system processors and stuff like that. So let's say you're away from the server, you're off location, and a server crashes. Let's just say the thing goes down. If the server goes down, you obviously can't restart it. You can't, secure shell into the server. You can't really do anything to it to restart it, because you can't actually access the operating system because it has crashed. So what can you do? Well, if you have a drac card on the server, you can actually access that drac card through a web browser, and it will reboot the server, or you can turn it off, turn it on, or just reboot the server, and it will restart that operating system, and it'll get you back up and running. And it does not require the system at all. It doesn't require the system's help at all. So the actual CPUs, RAM, and everything on the server is totally separate. It has the function it really supports itself and has the function to restart the server on its own. So it doesn't rely on the server or operating system at all, which is really cool. It's a very, very nice setup. It allows me to also turn on the servers away from home. So if I go, oh crap, my file server is off, but I need to download this file from my server and I'm away from home. Well, what I can do, go to that IP address on the web browser, start it up, and the server will start up within a couple of minutes while I'm away from home. And if I didn't have that, I couldn't be there to push the power button on the server, so I couldn't turn it on. Now there is Wake on LAN, if you guys don't know what Wake on LAN is. But I mean, for those of you guys who have experience or haven't experienced Wake on LAN, it's very, very difficult. It's very, very, very hard to set up, and it's just like it says, Wake on LAN. It's a local area network, so it doesn't work very well even on local networks. It's such a hard pain in the ass to set up. But then trying to start up your server remotely from the WAN, not the LAN, it's impossible. It's really impossible. I mean, it can be done, but it's so finicky, and it works like 2% of the time that it's not even worth trying. So it is a very nice solution to fixing the Wake on LAN issue, because it doesn't wake on LAN when you try to do it. And your network card has to be hot all the time and stuff. So that's what the drac card does. Now, what is the problem with it? Well, okay, their functions are very limited. It also shows you a lot of, we'll take a look at it in a second. We'll actually take a look at the drac card and how to set it up and stuff, and we'll take a look at it in the browser. But there's different versions of the drac card, just like there are different versions of the RAID card. And the older versions support less. They will offer less functions. They will offer less statistics on your server. Whereas the newer versions are very, very nice. And they do a lot more. You can actually see a screen of the BIOS on your web browser. So you can actually see the BIOS screen on your web browser and remotely control your BIOS, which is almost impossible. It's almost unheard of. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. But you can actually control the BIOS through a web browser, through a little screen on the web browser, which is cool. You can also do a lot more and read a lot more functions and stuff about your server, the higher level drac card you have. There's like drac 3, 4, 5, stuff like that. There's different versions of it, and they only run in certain servers, so you can't run a drac 5 card in a Dell PowerEdge 1750, but the 2950 will support a Dell drac 5 card, which will support a lot more functions. Now, what is the issue with these cards? Well, there's a few issues, and they really are, how do I say it? I don't know, they're just a really pain in the ass to deal with. They're very, very nice when you get them running, but they're so hard to get running that it's almost like you might as well set up Wake on LAN, right? So, well, first off, Dell PowerEdge and Dell themselves don't really support a lot of Linux operating systems. They support like Red Hat, and they support, I don't even know, I think like CentOS or something like that. They support a couple Linux operating systems, but Dell and Windows are just kind of like, I don't know, butt buddies. They like, you know, they're very close to each other, and you know, Dell only supports it if you're running a Windows server operating system, and they don't really support any other operating systems, and they won't give you any support if you call them up over the phone if you have a Linux operating system running on your server. They'll be like, nope, sorry, we don't support that, which is really stupid. So if you're running any kind of Debian based Linux or anything like that, forget it. You're not going to be able to really work with these cards. So the stupid thing is they have a password on them. They do have a password and a username and all that crap. If you ever want to go on there and change it, if you have an older card, you can't change it through the web browser. You have to change it on the operating system. And you do have to have a Windows operating system to do it. You cannot do it on Linux, which is a huge downer. So you will literally have to install Windows Server 2000 whatever on your server to get the drac card to work. Okay, now that's in its own a pain in the ass. And if you bought the drac card used, or you don't know the username and password to it, you're gonna have to reset it anyways. And to do that, even if you have the newer cards, you're going to have to install Windows Server to get it to work. And yes, I had to do that on all my drac cards, which was a pain. Okay, so if that wasn't enough, they run on HTTPS, so that it gives you other issues, especially if you're in locations that want a certificate. You know, some certain networks, depending on where you are, school, work, whatever, will only allow SSLs with, only allow secure ports with certificates. So then it gives you the certificate error because it's not a signed certificate. So then you have to go through that. So it runs an SSL, it runs through an HTTPS port 500 by default, I think it is, or something like that. I don't even know. No, it runs on port 443, but I changed mine to like 500. Anyways, so it runs on 443. And then on top of that, they run, when you start up the server, it doesn't run just in the web browser. You need to, it runs in all these applets and crap. It runs Java. It runs like 20 million, you know, pop-ups and stuff to actually work it. It's not just like HTML5 or anything. So it's very slow when it loads. It's very, you know, it kind of seems very finicky. It seems like it doesn't really work right. So that's the big problem with these things, is they don't seem just very smooth. They run all these applets and stuff, and half the time your browser won't even connect to the actual drac card itself, which is kind of a pain. You know, it's not like a web server or anything. It's like trying to be a web server, but it doesn't work quite right. You know, it's not written in HTML. It's like 100% Java, which doesn't really work out too well. So we'll go ahead and actually hook one up. I'll show you guys how to set it up in the screen and everything. We'll take a look at one, and we'll look at it in the browser and see how it looks and show you what kind of it can do. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of those right now. Alright guys, so unfortunately I can't really show you guys the back of the servers because they're behind the wall, but anyways, you guys will know what a drac card looks like if you actually have a server. It'll either be installed in your server or it won't. You should know. If you don't know, just post on the forums or whatever. And some of them are hiding way deep down in servers, like in the 1750s or whatnot. But you can also just Google the drac card and find the location of it in your server and see if you have one installed or not. They're fairly cheap if you don't have one. You can buy one on eBay. But anyway, so I have one installed right now. This is the Ethernet cable to it. And it's going to my top PowerEdge 1750 right here. So we'll go ahead and turn this server on, and we'll see what it says on the screen when we set it up. So I'll go ahead and pause the video till we get to that point. Alright guys, so here's the BIOS loading up, and this is a Dell PowerEdge 1750 again guys, so it's very, very slow. This is probably one of the slowest servers in the world when it comes to booting up. So anyways, here's the actual BIOS going, and it'll be Control D, so let me look for that on my keyboard. It's kind of dark here. Okay, Control D. So you guys will see it come up on the screen here. It'll say push Control D. This is right here is the RAID controller, so that's just the RAID card. If you want to access that, you would hit Control M. We'll see it come up here. It'll show a couple like IP addresses and configurations and stuff. This will only pop up again if you have the actual drac card. If you don't have it installed on your server, then you won't see this option. But it'll show it in a second here, and you do have to push it. It says within 5 seconds. There's remote access controller, and if you push it, you'll come to this screen. Now, this is very different depending on which drac card you have. Every card is different. If you have a newer card, so this is a drac, I don't know if it says the version of it right now, but this is one of the older ones because it's on the Dell PowerEdge 1750. But if you have like a 2950 or something, it'll be a little bit more advanced setup than this, and you'll have a lot more options. So you can see some basic info here. The current settings right here. You can also see options. So you can have DHCP, which obviously you wouldn't want. You'd want to have a static IP so you always know where to access it, and so you could also port forward it to access it over the internet. Also, you can set the static IP address, the net mask, and the gateway. That's really all you need to do, and it's very, very simple. So let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and set these for my network, and then we'll access it through a web browser. I'm probably going to change the IP address just to one that I know is available, so we'll go ahead and hit I to change the static IP address. And again, it's kind of dark in here, so I can't see it, so bear with me, guys. So here's I'll push it, and it says enter a new static IP, and enter to accept. Alright guys, so I've entered 10.0.0.20. My access gateway is 10.0.0.1, and I'm going to go ahead and actually also change the net mask to 255.255.255. So we'll just go ahead and hit enter, and it'll save that new IP address. And it will not show it on the current settings until we actually reset the server. You just have to power it, cycle it, and it'll change the IP address. So we'll go ahead and hit N and change the net mask. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So we change the net mask, and there it is, 255.255.0.0, and that'll go to our gateway, which is 10.0.0.1. So we'll just go ahead and power cycle the server. Actually, we have to hit R to save and reboot the changes. Reboot the card, sorry. Save changes and reboot the card. So we'll just go ahead and hit R right now. Okay, so it's just gonna say some crap, you know. In order for the changes to take effect, you have the card needs to reset. Then the computer will reboot. So it'll say, would you like to save the changes to the card now? Just go ahead and hit yes. Okay, so it's saving the changes right now, and it's going to reboot the server on its own. So at this point, we'll go ahead and we'll plug in the Ethernet cable and go to the web browser and check out that address to see if it works. Alright guys, so here we are on the web browser. Sorry if you guys, it's hard to see on full screen. I normally don't do full screen because it's hard to see, but here we go. I'm going to use full screen. So here's 10.0.0.20, and not to my surprise, it doesn't work. But we also do need to put HTTPS. You can't forget that. It is a secure site, so it is loading now. It's not like it didn't automatically not respond. So there it is. Here's the certificate issue. So I mean, most of the time this isn't an issue. You just hit proceed anyways. But like I said, some specific networks like school or depending on where you work won't allow that. They will automatically just block this page. So here's the next issue with these cards is they have Java. You have to have a plugin to run this. Okay, so now it's becoming more of a pain in the ass. Also, this kind of cuts you off on mobile browsing. So, we don't even have Java installed on this computer. That's great. This is my new computer, so I don't have it installed yet. So we'll go ahead and install this plugin real quick and resume here in just a second. Alright guys, so we've installed Java, and now it's asking us Java needs your permission to run. So you can say always run or run this time. We're just going to go ahead and run this time. So then it takes a second, and then it's going to give you another plugin pop-up for like a Java applet. And again, it's very, your computer has to have specific software installed. So if it's not your own computer and you're at a public computer, you're going to have to install Java and all this crap, and you may not be able to do that. So this alone, causes so many problems. I wish it was just a simple HTML5, type of control. Whereas this just makes it such a pain. And you can see that it's not even loading really, it's just giving us trouble. So it's very finicky, very unreliable. Most of the time it just gives you issues like this, and you can't really access the remote access card. So it says it requires a separate browser to process, okay. So I don't know why it's doing that. Let's just go ahead and open it in the world's worst internet browser, Internet Explorer, just to see if it works. HTTPS 10.0.0.20, and I need the 2 slashes. So there it is. No thank you. We'll go ahead and continue and see if it works here. So then it's saying now Java isn't installed on this browser, so let's go ahead and here it is. Let's say run it and go and enable. It might work, it might. Okay, so here we are. This is where we would get to, and it would ask us that certificate thing. So let's go ahead and reload the page and see if it runs that. No. So I mean, you guys can see here that it's on its own. It's just so unreliable. It gives you so much trouble just because of the type of interface they use, you know. So I'll play around with it for a minute and we'll see if we can get it working. So I'll show you guys it once it starts working. Let me go ahead and see if I can, you know, try and get this thing working. Alright guys, so it looks like it's about to run. After this is the second one this is the second pop-up. So it runs 2 pop-ups, and you have to click run each time, and then it takes a minute. And oh, this is the third one. We hit allow, we keep hitting allow, and then finally you're presented with this. So if I remember the login correctly, I will try and get it working. Let's see. And then you can't hit enter, you have to hit OK. Did I get the right password? Wow, surprisingly I did. So here's the logins to my remote access cards. Just so you guys know, don't ever try to get into these because they won't be plugged in. So you guys can't actually get into this after this video because they're not port forwarded, and I don't ever have my drac cards plugged in just because they're so hard to set up. So this is a very old version of the drac card. Like I said, this is the Dell PowerEdge 1750. When you get into like the 1850 and the 2950, and then of course the newer servers, you'll have a lot more options than this, and they will actually work. Like when you go to the sensors page, it'll say loading or retrieving the list of sensors, and it'll take forever, and it'll give you a bunch of sensors that won't show their values. So this is practically useless on this server. I think it depends also on like what operating system you're running. Like I said, Windows and Dell, you know, are really close, and that's all they really work with. So if you have like a Debian operating system or a real operating system that, you know, you'd probably be running on a server, then it's not going to work with that. So anyways, you have the configuration, session timeout, just, you know, stuff to configure this remote access. So let's actually go to where it actually matters, which is the remote access tab. If we click on that and it takes 5 minutes to load, it'll eventually get there. And what's really cool about this is this is the only reason these drac cards are really worth it. So you can actually remote floppy boot. And other cards you can actually, like I said, get into the BIOS and change like boot priorities and change the BIOS settings and everything from the screen. It'll actually show you a real life screen. You can do the console and everything. But for now, it doesn't really give us that option because this is an older card. But so we have several options. The server is actually on right now. So in this case, we have the reset. So we could reset the server right now. So let's say the server were to crash. We could actually access this web browser regardless if the server is crashed, running on or off. It doesn't really matter. If this drac card is connected, you can do anything you want to the server from here. So we could reset it, we could apply it, and boom, it would reset the server right there if it was crashed. We could server power cycle, which is probably the same as resetting. I don't know the different options. It won't let us click power on because the server's already on. We can turn the power off. We could also do we can't do graceful shutdown or restart. Again, that's where you would actually properly shut down the operating system rather than just shutting it down. Turning the server power off is pretty much like going and pushing the power button on the server and holding it till it turns off. Doing a graceful server shutdown is basically like going and clicking, if you're in Windows, clicking the start and shutting it down properly, or if you're in Ubuntu, just running the shutdown command. So that's the difference between the two, and then resetting just resets it. So we could go ahead and power the server off, and it will actually run that command, and it'll say it sent the command successfully. We're not going to click that for now, and it actually just now powered the server off. So that server is off now. I don't want to go in there and actually show it to you guys because I'd have to walk to the other side of the house, which is way too much work. So anyways, because it's Linux, it'll actually shut off very quickly, and it won't take 12 hours like it would if it were a Windows server. So refresh the browser, which will take 12 hours because these drac cards are really slow. And like I said, a lot of times if you're running these remotely, it'll time out. You know, the browser will time out, or it won't run all these Java applets and crap, and it won't work. So that's why they're very finicky, and they just don't work 99% of the time. And I don't actually use these things because most of the time when I need to access the server, it won't let me access it. So it's not even worth having the drac card in there. But they are really nice to have because it allows me to start up my server if I am away from home. It's the only option I have. It's the only hope I have is these drac cards. But like I said, most time you can't access it anyways, and you'll end up running into this thing right here, which will load for 2 hours, and then it'll eventually time out. So I'll pause it, and we'll actually resume once the controller starts responding. Alright guys, so here we are again, and it's now asking me to log in. Sorry about this. Okay. Oh, and you have to hit OK. So, it'll log back in, and just to let you guys know, when the video did pause, when I paused it, before this page actually came up to the login, I had to accept the 3 agreements again to allow the applets to run and allow the non-secure page to run, which is just ridiculous. So every time you do it, it's just so much work to run it through the browser. So this is what really makes the drac card worth all of its pain if you're going to use it. This is what's so cool. You can see that none of the options are available except power on. So the server is actually off. There's no way, you see, it's very easy to turn off a server remotely because I can SSH into it, or I can remote desktop into it, or whatever. And because the server operating system is already on, I can access that operating system through some technique, some way, whether it's SSH or remote desktop, and shut down the server. But if the server is off, there's no operating system running, therefore I can't really turn on the server. There's no way to turn on the server. Like I said, besides Wake on LAN, which is so much... it's just not, it's impossible to get working, you know, over the internet, and it's almost impossible to get working on LAN. So here's the option to power on. So we can actually apply this, hit OK, and it will actually power on the server remotely through a web browser. Now that is $1 million invention right there. That's so useful, it's not even funny. But Dell has to create an easier way to do it besides these remote access controllers. They are very nice if they worked right, if they functioned properly, if they didn't have all these issues, if they weren't so finicky, if they weren't, you know, so hard to deal with. It would be a great system, and I would love to use it. I do, like I said, I have remote access cards in all of my servers. The SC servers, the simple computer like my SA1425, does not support drac cards, but an actual full-on Dell PowerEdge server will support a drac card, which is really nice to have, but like I said, they're very difficult to work with. And then when you port forward them, you have to port forward them on a secure port, you know, 443 or one of the higher port numbers to get a secure connection. And then once you power it on, so the server is actually powered on, and you can actually SSH into the server now and you know, run whatever is on there. So if you do have a web server or whatever, your web server will start to run as soon as you hit this and your operating system boots up. And like I said, if your server crashes or whatever, that's also $1 million you know, tool right there, which is so nice to have. Is if your server is not responding or it's not running, or you can't SSH or remote desktop into it because the operating system has crashed, you can't really do anything to it. There's nothing you can do besides access this remote access controller and hit reset. That will reboot the server and restart your operating system, which like I said, is the only way to do it, really. So it's a nice tool, but it's so hard to work with, and that's the reason I don't work with it. So I hope this kind of just gave you guys a little insight to the remote access cards, what they are, how they work, and why I don't use them. And if you guys have any more questions, definitely hit me up at thehackhub.com/forums to go into the forums, and I will answer your questions there. You guys can post anything you want about these drac cards or whatever. Would I recommend them? If it's your only option and you really do want to have a way to turn on your servers and whatnot remotely, they are really nice to have, but just be prepared to run into a lot of issues. And like I said, if you buy one used, which you probably are going to buy one used unless you buy one from Dell, and they probably cost like $100 or something ridiculous. If you buy one used, they're probably going to have a non-default password on it, which means you're going to have Windows Server to set the password. And then you have to install like a special software and crap to do it. It's so ridiculous, it's not even funny. But they are really nice to have once you get them running, and they do some magical things like power on and reset. So, hope you guys enjoyed this quick, not really a quick, but this long little, ramble about drac cards, and hope this helped you guys. And like always, have a good one.